Come on up, Anthony Pilata.
So
Wow.
Anthony's here. Let's give you a round of applause. And
Oh my goodness, but I didn't do anything yet.
you didn't do anything yet, but I got to we didn't have sound for the first couple of minutes there, so I apologize to the chat there. But thank you for Stacy for saying that. Rebecca, good to see you. Anna Laura, good to see you. Chris is here with us. We have a nice audience that's here with us. If you didn't hear what we were saying, we were talking about my school schedule. I teach like 1 o'clock to 10 o'clock on Tuesdays and 1 to 6 on Thursdays. We talked about that. And then Mandy said she was working on her syllabus for this year. But what we were saying is that Anthony, who you see on our screen now, has a 3-time instructor of the year, which is amazing. I got it 1 time. So, well, I'll catch up to you eventually, maybe, but we're not comparing.
Nope.
So
Why
I'd
not?
love.
Really? You should work a little harder, Amani.
Yeah.
He's making me feel. I mean, goodness gracious. Also, in the chat, if you have questions for Anthony, please put them in the chat. We love to maybe, if you're going to introduce yourself, Anthony, in 30 seconds or less, how would you introduce yourself?
It'll take me 30 seconds just to think about how I'm going to introduce myself. I'm a purveyor of entertainment and events and engagement, and I spent my early years getting a degree in theater and then moved into this line of work. So I come to it with that perspective in mind and always trying to turn an evening into a little bit of theater, if you will, excitement, engagement, and or a meeting, if you will. I would tell people that, I probably only have 3 seconds left,
I
that
didn't hit the timer. You're good.
okay, I'm 6'5" and have a full luscious head of hair and a mane that travels down my back. But since this is live and they can see me, I shouldn't lie. I have a face only a mother could love. That's why I like to introduce myself.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
I think to start off, the first thing, once I kind of was researching everything, I really am curious. After being in the industry for over 25 years, what inspired you to go to San Diego State University, Carl Winston in the house, and get your master's in meeting and event management?
Well, it's really quite simple. Even though I'm an older gent, I'm not yet at the end of my road. And COVID gave us all an opportunity to uh, do things that we might not ordinarily have the time to do. And I'd been thinking about getting a master's degree and actually had a goal for myself that I would have one by 50. And 50 came and went. And so when COVID came around and the time became available, I thought, why not? I need to find a way to improve my game and learn things that I don't know. You're never too old to learn.
See, I love that. And it's interesting because at this point, you'd already been in the industry for 30 plus years, or you've been in the industry for a long time. So what did that class teach you that you didn't already know? Were there any aha moments or nuggets that you pulled from that?
Oh my gosh, a ton of them, from my leadership style and how I learned to be an even better leader, to finances and how to be more strategic in planning data and becoming more familiar with how to collect it and how to look at it. There are tons of lessons that I'm actually trying to put to use now in my senior years. I'll just leave it there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, as a fellow entertainer and DJ that works in the industry, I've been working as a DJ for probably about 16 years. You've been working a little longer. What has been the most dramatic change that you've seen in terms of entertainment and providing entertainment from when you first began till 2023?
Oh my gosh. First of all, when I first started in entertainment in this business, I was actually in a performance group called, and forgive me for this, called Xanadu,
I
based
was
out
in
of
I was hoping you were gonna talk about Xanadu. Tell us everything.
This was back in the '80s. Uh, uh, that's where I got my start, and we would perform these lavish numbers, these choreographed numbers on a dance floor with no lighting whatsoever, to the uh, to music being played by a DJ. That was the format of the show. Uh, Now, you wouldn't even try to put on a show for an event without some kind of production. It just doesn't happen. It shouldn't really happen anymore because the bar has been raised so much. Back in the day, live vocals at events, yeah, you didn't really do it unless you were in the band. You know, you didn't try to do any performance with live vocals and microphones, but that's evolved. And I would say what's evolved most is the LED impact on costuming and
Mhm,
production. It's amazing. And the technical impact. My friend from Xanadu, Doreen Collier, we met back in the '80s when we were both dancing in that group. Uh, she she actually created a show called Television, which won several of the America's Got Talent rounds and became a staple of that show. And that was all based on technology. You know, there were movers moving these screens around in that show, and the screens had content on them that helped to tell a message as they were being moved around. It was very unique. You know, we
mhm.
just didn't have that back in the day. So production, LED, big impacts, and I would say the professionalism of the event entertainment industry has risen tenfold since we began. And the respect, I think, for event entertainers and the willingness to, for example, understand they need to be fed if they're going to be there for a long time, and that, you know, it might just be a 4-hour event, but it takes 2 to 3 hours to set up and a few hours to strike at the end, so it really is a long day, and, you know, those kinds of things all change so much.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I say one more thing?
Of course.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. As we think about how we want to respond to all that information. But go ahead.
Well, just as a as I've always I came into this industry as a theater person and always kind of felt that we were the Cinderella of the family, if you will.
Mm,
And as of late, going and it's been a few years pre-COVID, but the last time I was in New York and had an opportunity to go to Broadway and see 4 or 5 shows in a week, which is like what I love to do, I
mm,
noticed how many shows had begun to incorporate audience engagement in ways that we'd been doing for years and years and years. You know, some of the performers coming onto stage through the audience or coming out into the audience to engage audience members. One show, the show once actually started by the preamble to the show. They would bring people up on stage and have them dance on stage and interact then. So that I think is, for me, a great thing to see Broadway take some lessons from the live event world.
Isn't
Yeah.
that interesting? Because you would think it would be the other way around. Like we would take lessons from the Broadway world, but it's not. That's super interesting. I love that. I'm curious because I know Amani does a lot with Twitch and gamification and a lot of tech interaction.
Mm.
What are you seeing or what conversations are you having with clients out there about their production? Like, let's just say they've got a little bit of like the Broadway, I'm using an abacus, a little bit. It's just not updated. Like, how are you modernizing your clients' programs using modern production and keeping them within budget? What are some examples that you've seen out there?
Wow, that is a really terrific question. You know, it's I have to say it's pick 2 out of the 3,
Mm,
and budget is not something that is easy to deal with when you're talking about modernizing a production. Uh, so I can't really say what's the least expensive thing. I can say that people are making a more conscious decision to unite their audiences and to understand that they have two audiences if they think about it. One is the virtual audience, obviously, and one is the live and in-person audiences. And those that are doing it best are engaging their virtual audiences more creatively. For example, giving them some additional features that don't necessarily have to be in the same time frame as the live experience, but add to that buy-in, if you will, like a backstage interview with a keynote speaker that is only going to happen virtually, that won't happen in the live.
Mhm.
Gamification, I think I love the fact that Amani's doing that because we undervalue gamification, and too many people think, ugh, that's just the game, and people won't buy it. Well, if you're creative and clever, people will buy in. Even the most rigid, jaded people will buy in if you think about it with a little bit of cleverness and give yourself some time. You know, that's the thing that I think people are really re- they're coming to terms with, is that you can't really bring those two audiences together, A, in the same time frame, and B, in a short amount of time. You have to plan that journey for both audiences well in advance so that you can make it happen. I would say that my clients who are embracing that and moving forward are doing it well. And gamification is a big part of it,
Mhm.
making that virtual audience feel like they're there. It doesn't take a lot. If you've got the apparatus already in place, that's the biggest cost.
Mhm.
Then it's just adding from there, and it's not a lot more money to make it more engaging. It just takes some thought, you know, and some time to develop. I would imagine you agree, Amani.
Oh, 100%. I'm glad to hear just your perspective because I feel it shouldn't go away. It should be even more amplified. So your perspective really just warms my heart. So I'm happy that you say that. Just to kind of continue, as you're working with your clients now in 2023, many people in the industry are really concerned about maybe an impending recession. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you approach your business with keeping kind of that in the back of your mind, or do you just keep pushing forward and don't even worry about it?
Well, I think it's the big events that give me the most worry because things like recessions don't always impact us in the same way. And recession doesn't impact all business. So diversifying your business always, right? And I think we're already there with not only corporate business from a variety of different industries, but association business and social business. So I would say that you forge ahead in a recession, and there are going to be influxes of business. And if there is a downturn in corporate business because of a recession, there are still going to be weddings, and there are still going to be bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and anniversaries and all those things, and people will still have a need. So it's just about, as Mandy would say, keeping your head up and looking for where the need really is. And remembering, if you're only doing corporate, that businesses still make money in a recession. Maybe not the ones you think of. Maybe you have to
Mhm.
think outside of those. But so I try not to worry too much. You know, it's the 9/11s and the COVIDs that become more worrisome for me because I've been through so much of this. Just keep
Yeah,
your head up and look for business. It's out there. That would be my recommendation and the way that we operate.
amazing. Go ahead, Mandy, because I want to come back and keep you. I know you're.
Amani and I Amani and I both are like, "Who gets to
Well,
ask next?" Yeah.
let me just
Okay,
say
I'll
that
come back
that
to you.
doesn't mean that every year is gonna be a great year. You
Mhm.
Right.
know, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that every year I'm gonna grow my business 10 or 15%, which would be lovely.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But we can manage to stay in business and to transact some really great business while we're at it.
Agree.
That's
Yeah.
a good point too. That's a good point.
Carolyn Harris is in the chat. Hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. Go ahead, Mandy.
Well, so speaking of business and thriving or staying afloat, during downturns or economic downturns, I want to switch to a minute to the other side of your business in talent, right? Because it's this
Mm.
three-legged prong of like you need the customers and you need the talent, you need that relationship. So, Anthony, I have a true confession for you. And I was thinking about it over the weekend and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever shared this with you. So I'm going to share it with you. And then I want to ask about talent. So way back when it was 2000, goodness, 5 or 6, and I was a director of sales at the Stingery. And being a director of sales means when you open up, you're in charge of gathering all the vendors and all this good stuff. Well, we had a big event, and we found these awesome drummers. They were just street drummers. And we thought, you know what? They would be rad to have in front of the building with some spotlights at an event that we had. So we got the drummers. We paid them what, I'm not an entertainment booker, right? So we paid them what we thought was fair. I think we even asked them, like, how much do you want to get paid for 4 hours? We paid them whatever we wanted. We paid them. And then I think a year later, I went to another event and they were there. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you. And it was somebody from your team. I can't remember who it was. I was like, this is so great. We found these guys a year ago. And someone from your team was like, yeah, people were underpaying them and not treating them well. And we brought them in as our talent. And I felt so guilty. I was like, oh my gosh, what a jerk am I? I didn't know any better, but it was an alert to me of like, if I see some great talent out there, send them to the experts like you or like an agency that
Mm.
how to take care of them and give them their breaks and all this other stuff. So how, first of all, I hope, will you forgive me for my true confession and underpaying great talent? And then second, how do you find great talent? How do you keep them with you? Because I'm imagining it's a really competitive environment out there.
Well, it's so funny that you should mention them. I wanna say they're no longer in San Diego, they left a long time ago. I
Okay.
used them for a Qualcomm performance. I wanna
Okay.
say they were called the Mambo Kings, but I could be completely off. I
I can't
think I
remember their
found
name.
that
They were
group
great
I
though.
found that group downtown. So I
Oh.
think we found them probably in the same way because
Mhm.
I was walking downtown and I heard that ferocious beat and I thought,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, that is incredible." And I found my way to it, gave them a card and said, "Call me." And they were great to have on our roster for a few years. So what I tell my students is you find great entertainment if you just keep your eyes open and your ears open wherever you are because it's everywhere. You just have to be looking for it. You're not going to necessarily find it in the phone book. You're not
Mm,
necessarily gonna find it online because what you'll see online is people showing their best, right? That's
mm,
what you should see, and that's what you assume. But that doesn't always tell the story live, and I've learned that too. So we always have our eyes and ears open, and you know what? They're an extension of us, our artists, and I'm an artist. I started as a performer, and almost everyone on my staff has as well, and so we understand the underbelly. We've been there, we've danced our tushies off for 4 hours without a morsel of food, or drink, and been told, "No, that's not your bathroom. You go in the back," and been asked, "Do your parents know that you do this for a living?" and all that great stuff. So
mm.
Mhm.
we we we've
God.
been there. So it's just about mutual respect, and we keep them coming back when we show them that we care about their business and their success, and we don't get caught up in, "Oh, you're being booked by that person? Well, we can't book you." We don't get caught up in that. We pay them on time when we say we're going to pay them, and we do what we say we're going to do, and we're on site, and that was something that, gosh, I believe I started here because nobody was really on site checking in before we opened, and now it's just a staple and an expectation. We're on site to make sure that, you know what? When the DJ comes, he knows where to set up, he knows where to plug in, he knows when his breaks are going to be, he knows who the client is and who these people are and why he's there, and all of that information and how his parking is gonna be handled and where his green room is with his beverages, all of that, because that really matters. And at the end of the day, when your artists feel like they're being taken care of, they're going to do an incredible job. Not that they shouldn't if they're not taken care of, and the
Yeah.
good ones still do perform, but when they're treated well, they it's amazing the difference and the change. And so that's just it, mutual respect. When we book, when we put our artists on hold for a client, we stay in touch. We don't
Mhm.
scream at them when they call and ask what's going on. We don't, give them a finger when they ask too many times. And
Yeah.
when the client calls us and says, "We found something else. Thank you so much," we let them know to take it off their calendar because it's
Mm.
not going to happen. And you know, that little thing, it's amazing what that does because
That's a big deal. That's because a lot of that's a people are holding dates, and just
Yes.
letting them release is a huge deal. Little thing.
if you don't ever release them, then they stop taking your dates seriously.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then that one time when you do book them and they have released the date because it took so long for you to get back to them, which happens in our world, and there's a little kerfuffle there, you end up losing a relationship that you could have had,
Mhm.
over communication.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's it. That's how we do it. And I'm proud of that because we have artists that will tell new artists coming into town or somebody that they've seen to call us and that we will, represent them and help them.
I
I
love
love
it.
that.
Yeah.
We do have a question from the chat. So Carolyn Harris, thank you for your question. She wants to know if we want to do a large event, say for example a music festival, where would you start? Would you start promoting that marketing, or would you go straight into sponsorship, or do you do both simultaneously?
Well, you really can't market a festival, a music festival per se, assuming that you want to work with anybody who's a name in the music industry. You really can't begin to market that until you've signed a contract and paid a deposit for those artists. So, marketing isn't your first widget. Your first widget is actually a little bit of logistical work. Where
Mhm.
and how much it's going to cost. Those are the 2 biggest things. So finding a venue that will not only be able to accommodate the music that you'd like to offer, but the size audience that you will need to have in order to turn a profit. So venue is really important, and the size of the audience that it will accommodate is important. And know this, when you're doing a festival and you're engaging headline acts, it takes a bit of negotiating because generally in the public setting, not the private setting, but the public setting, when you're selling tickets, those artists expect a cut.
Mhm.
Yes.
And the big artists get a huge cut, 85% of the door. So,
Mhm.
and you still take care of, by the way, all of the production and all of the backline that is needed and all of the marketing, unless you negotiate those. So it's best to know your venue, the audience size, and your budget. You got to do a strategic finance around this to see if the numbers make sense first, and then start going after talent and sponsorship, then marketing, because
Mhm.
you want some names behind you before you start marketing.
Sage
Understood.
wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask a quick question about teaching. Many people feel that teachers are the ones giving information and inspiration and wisdom to students when it's actually a two-way conversation. You actually learn as much from the students as you're teaching them. You actually can really understand a lot more. What's been your experience with that? Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I'm having a harder time online feeling that. I feel it's a bit more of a shove to get the information out. So, but when live and in person, absolutely, because then students are more open and more dialogue takes place, and there's an awful lot to learn. And you know what? It doesn't have to be professional learning. It could be personal learning.
Mhm.
And I think it's also just important to stay in touch with that part of
Mhm.
ourselves as we get older, the youthfulness, the what's the word I'm looking for? They're excited and
Mhm.
ready to tear down the world and,
Yes.
fly past the glass ceiling. And that kind of optimism is just really great. I think that's the biggest gift.
Yeah. Exuberance is the word that I think of when
Exuberance. Thank you.
yes.
Ooh,
Thank you.
yeah. Little verbal advantage,
Yay.
Amani. Nice.
Go ahead, Randy.
I agree though, because there are times, when you teach, normally when you teach, I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm teaching these classes, it's at the end of a day, a whole work day. And there's sometimes I go into it and I have a 3-hour class I'm teaching on negotiation, which always glazes people's eyes over at first until people click into it. But it is the energy that the students give off that just remind me of how awesome our industry is. And we're building a bench. These are the futures of our industry as well. And you're right. Like I feed off that exuberance too. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Anthony. That's awesome.
I want to take your class, Mandy. I bet that it's a great class.
Do it.
Yes.
It's February
I think I
16th. It
might have to audit
starts.
it. Is it an online class?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's an online class. It's
Is it
it's
I is it the certification program or the
yeah,
undergrad? Is it? So
yeah.
we're in the same program.
We're in the same program.
I
Yeah.
didn't even realize I
Twinsies.
didn't even know
Yeah.
that until you said it tonight that during this podcast that you were teaching there. That this
Yeah,
class.
I just started last year, and you know who roped me into it is our mutual friend Nicole Matthews.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's
Mhm.
awesome too. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
She is. She's going to be on the show next month, actually. Yeah, she is. She
Right.
is super awesome. I want to. Speaking of that, that's a kind of a good segue. You are so charitable and philanthropic, and I would love for you to share some of the things that you do. I know you're on the board of. I think it's Homestart. Is that the name of the organization?
I was on the board until
Okay.
July of this year
Okay.
and presided over the board a couple of times as well.
Okay.
Uh, but your question?
Yeah, what is that organization, or what are some other philanthropy projects you're involved with? What is your personal and business philosophy about giving back? Just general give back kind of conversation.
So, personally, I feel it's important to give
Mhm.
back in any way that you possibly can. It's just about paying it forward and recognizing that, not that we don't work hard, but there's a certain amount of gratitude that we have for the good fortune that we get along the way, the great clients that come our way, or, whatever might be the good luck that we have. And so it's important to just pay it forward. Back in 2003, I took a lead certification program from the city of San Diego, and was basically a leadership program. And the idea of it was once you graduated from this program, you go out in the community and become stewards of the community. And that's when I joined my first board. And Homestart is a board that I sat on for 14, I think almost 14 years, whose
Wow.
mission
Cool.
it is to end child abuse in San Diego by negating some or mitigating some of the factors that lead to abuse in the first place, and then providing the therapeutic programming necessary when it does happen. So it was a program that I felt very close to, and it's hard not to help the smallest among us who are the most vulnerable among us. On the artistic side, San Diego Rep is an organization I joined a few years ago. We recently closed the theater. We had to. COVID was an very difficult thing to get through. And while the theater really tried to push some virtual programming and did some really wonderful things, it just wasn't sticking. The Horton Plaza now in San Diego is being completely renovated and will be a tech hub, and the theater is a bit of a mess. So we're now trying to bring San Diego Rep back with a new board of trustees and a new
Mm.
artistic director and a new location in downtown San Diego, hopefully. And so I'm sitting on that transition. It's actually a task force, was on the board sitting on that. My love of theater being a reason why. And the San Diego Rep is so important to San Diego, 40-year institution. We can't lose it. It trains so many local artists and people who wanted to work backstage in administration, leading them to bigger, better places. And so we need that training ground here. So it's just about, I love this city.
Hmm. I do
And,
too.
you know, and
Hmm.
here's something else. It's not the reason why I did it, and it's not the reason why anybody really should do it, but you can get business by being altruistic and giving and taking the focus off your business and putting it on something or someone else. And my volunteer work has led to some business along the way.
Hmm.
Um, so there's not, and it's great. It's productive. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great to
Hmm.
volunteer time and you learn a little bit more about yourself and the world. It's great
Yeah.
for personal development as well.
Agree.
I love that. I totally agree. That's a great answer. I didn't realize about the rep theater. As you advance with that, please keep us all posted and let us know how we can support, because that is such a great institution in San Diego, and bringing it back in some form would be very welcome, not just by the arts community. I think just by anybody that lives here or anybody in Southern California.
Thank you for that. I
Yeah.
absolutely will. Thank you for that. Yes,
Yeah.
we need to bring it back and do great work again.
Yeah. We also wanted to maybe ask you about trends. That's a really kind of hot topic. When you're looking at events, meeting industry, what are two or three trends that you're keeping your eye on as we start 2023 and make our way through, this, I say probably one of our final years of transitioning out of the pandemic?
I'm still waiting for VR to
Mm.
come into the event world stronger than it has. I haven't seen really much of it. I expect it to happen on the trade show floor first. I could be wrong, but I would like to start seeing that happen. It seems a bit difficult now to do with large audiences because it's a bit cost prohibitive, but I do see it making its way in soon. Honestly, the trend in the last year has really been to recoup and to reorganize and determine where people are going next. And though some clients are really embracing the hybrid model, too many are not, and too
Mm.
many are missing the boat. So, and the trend there will, I think, begin to take root when an easy way is determined, and by that I mean deter the hotel experience, the venue experience, and the bandwidth that's needed to reach a virtual audience comes together in a way that's affordable and appropriate and works. And so I think that is being one little, you know, obstacle that we need to get past before hybrid will really take off, because clients have to understand what the financial impact is, and so many are not. They're not looking at that virtual audience as the next live audience, as a way to engage them into live, or as just another income stream, you know.
Yes. Yes.
I wonder if you even rename it that, right? If there's a whole rebrand of it, instead of calling it virtual or hybrid, it's called Next Live.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that like might even be the way, because Next Live sounds sexy to me,
Yes.
versus virtual or hybrid. I wonder if there's a way to
Yeah.
glob on that in some way.
I think you have something there. It has to sound exciting and interesting, and it has to make people want to open their wallets. Here's the thing that I learned during COVID. Yes, people loved the engagement. They appreciated the fact that they could meet virtually, but nobody really saw the value in it from a financial perspective. Nobody was really willing to pay what they would pay for a live event, because the mindset is, well, this was easy for them to do. Like, this didn't cost
Mhm.
them anything.
Mhm.
The
No,
infrastructure behind all that is right? To make
Yeah.
it look like television, right. But that's the perception.
mm,
So, you can't really fight that perception. So, next live, some kind of sexier appeal with more interesting offerings is definitely where we need to get.
Mhm.
what is an example? of some more interesting offerings that you think people be like, oh, that makes sense. I should get that and that would help me. What comes to mind when you think of some more interesting offerings?
Well, I think I just said it actually, but I wasn't thinking about this. Maybe it's that the VR component happens on the virtual end, and that's the opportunity that is given there. It's more of a 360-degree feel. That's gonna take some work on the forefront, but maybe that's what it is. You're actually feeling like you're in this immersive environment, even though you're sitting in your living room.
Hmm.
That could be it,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great
I
idea.
couldn't agree more. I'm a fan. I think people should not discount the impact and the visibility that your business or company could acquire by doing something both in person and a hybrid model. So, yeah, you're preaching to the choir here.
I bet, I bet. Well, it's really once companies, once associations, organizations find their way and understand the value, truly understand and see their way there, it'll start to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
We all see that. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Mandy, over to you. We got still about another 10 or 15 minutes. So maybe if you ask one question, then we'll let Anthony flip the script and ask us questions. And then, of course, Mandy and I have our favorite kind of ending questions we love to ask all our guests. So over to you for one more, Mandy.
Well, I don't have a question, but I have a surprise for you, Anthony. Are you ready?
Mhm.
So I wrote a
Love you.
haiku for you.
Yay.
I have a haiku. So for those in the audience that don't know what haiku is, it's a 5-7-5 rhyme scheme. And when I was on Anthony's show a couple of last month, he surprised me with a haiku, which warmed my heart because if you know me, you know I love a good haiku. So are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm
Okay.
ready.
This is
Uh,
just for you, an
and I'm
Anthony
honored.
haiku. Okay. A visionary, weathering the storm in style, leading all of us. There you go.
Wow. Okay, we'll give you some,
Could I have that?
Yes! I'll
Thank
send it to
you.
you. I'll send it to you.
I
We'll
love it.
make it pretty. Team Mandy will make it pretty and send it over.
Thank
I
you.
love
No, I love
Yeah,
it. Thank you so much.
you're
I'm
welcome.
I'm turning red, I think, because it's humbling, honestly.
Don't blush. So now at this point of the show, we kind of allow you, Anthony, to ask myself and Mandy a question. So we'll first you can pick who you want to ask the question for first. It could be a question about anything. Who do you want to talk to first?
Well, I'll ask Mandy first, and that is your ability to remain positive and to bring out the levity and lightness in everyone is just it's incredible. So I'd
Aw.
love you to tell me how you maintain that on a daily basis because I'm sure you have times when you just want to say WTF.
Where I wanna punch people in the face all the
Right,
time. Yeah,
right,
all the
right.
time. You're right. You're totally right.
So what is your
Um,
secret? How do you get there?
yeah, it's a good question. I really, truly, I try as hard as I can to look for the good in all people, in all situations. I try and not take anything personally, although there are times where it does feel directed at you and you have to just roll with that. But I really do, even the worst things, I mean, last week I kind of had a really hard week at work and there were a couple times, a couple WTF moments where I was like, ah, but then, I just try and I do 3 deep breaths. That's always a reset for me. Whenever things seems a little discombobulated, I do inhale, exhale. I do it 3 times. And then I just ask myself, what is good here? Even in the worst situations, what is good here? Is there a lesson learned? And how can you have fun with it? I mean, sometimes in our worst situations in life, I still find a way to make a joke out of it. It might be not appropriate, it might be too soon, but I still think everything can be funny
Right.
if you look at it like that. Look for the good. Give yourself some grace too, because
Yeah.
I mean we're not perfect and we don't know everything. So I just think grace, 3 deep breaths. Try and find the good in everyone and everything. That's a great question.
Awesome.
Thank you.
A
And a high
great answer.
compliment. Really big
Yeah.
Awesome.
compliment. Thank you.
Awesome answer. Awesome answer. And I will start breathing more. Those breaths really, they work. They
Our
really do work.
They do, and our faces are blue. Like
Mhm.
all of our faces are purple and blue because nobody's breathing. And
Right.
there's actually a really good book called it's just called Breathe. And I learned my old neighbor gave it to me. I learned a lot from just that book where it's like how red or blue is our face and our ears are ringing because we're all about to explode. But if we just breathe,
Yeah.
let it out. We're gonna be better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
Amani.
Yes.
So you have been successful in this business and you're teaching. And so I wonder, what do you do on a daily basis that contributes to your success? What do you do that helps you be the best that you can be?
Ooh.
Mm. I would say, and I need to continue to be better at it. I like to journal in the morning. That's one thing that I like to do. Um, I also try to find a good balance. Like I'll play a sports, like I play co-ed soccer on Thursdays. So that's some things I do to balance myself out on a daily basis. I try to stay as organized as possible, and kind of bucket my time where I might be doing a lot of writing in the morning, a lot of client reach out from like 11 to 1, then any sort of follow up from like 2 to 4, and then research from like 4 to 6 before dinner. So I think that's what's helped me the most is just bucketing my time and staying as disciplined as possible. Some people might say it's robotic. I like to call it discipline because it really helps me kind of stay focused on the tasks I need to do. And on a daily basis, I think that's kind of what's allowed me to be successful throughout the years.
Oh gosh, I admire that so much. I wish I had the discipline to bucket time like that.
It's hard.
But yeah, I can't even imagine trying, but I have to say that that sits among some of the well-established uh, um, habits of some of the
Yeah.
most successful leaders is that when you decide you're going to do something, you don't let all of these distractions come in and, and just suck your time away.
Right.
No
Right.
matter
So
what
it's
they are and who they are and how important they are, it doesn't mean that they're not important when you just put them on hold for an hour. It just means that you have the discipline to keep your mind from roaming into that space.
Yeah, focus.
It's
It's that
Yeah.
mental
it's hard.
focus.
It's a
Yeah.
work in the progress all the time. So absolutely,
Wow.
yeah, for sure.
What's your favorite I'm gonna ask one more. What's your favorite kind of event to
Oh,
DJ, and what do you bring to an event that's different? That's
okay.
just you?
Yeah. So favorite kind of event to DJ. I love corporate events. I just think that that's just what I love to do. They kind of offer you a little bit more flexibility with
Mm.
much fewer emotions for like a wedding or a social event. It's really high strung emotional. So I like those the best. What makes me unique, I would say just my working with me is a combination of my experience in hospitality because I grew up working in hotels, my musical knowledge because I've been in music since fifth grade, and then now I would add to that just my technical ability with the live and in person and doing a lot of technology and intertwining it all into on one show. I think that's very rare. And then you sprinkle on some game show and gamification on top, and I think that's what sets me apart.
I have a feeling something else sets you apart too, and that is, and I just met you, so I'm taking a stab. The awareness that even though you're DJing the event and what you bring to it really will impact the success of the event, even though that is still true, you understand that it's not all about you when you're
Oh,
part of an event, and that the catering and the decor and the speeches and any of the other stakeholder needs are even more important than the music, as important as that is.
yes.
That's sort of the energy that I'm picking up from you, and I would say that is the a number one thing to do always is remember that there's so many other things that are happening that are more
Right.
important than whatever it is we're bringing.
Agree. Thank you
It's a
for
really good
mentioning it.
point.
Appreciate
Good
that.
point.
Yeah.
Did I hit it on the head, Mandy? Is that Amani?
Totally. Yeah. Amani is a global thinker and he's always thinking about the customer or the experience, the holistic approach. Yeah, you totally nailed it. That was astute. That's a intuitive pickup
Thank
too.
you.
Another good
Yeah,
word. Another good word, Mandy. Well
I know
yeah.
done.
that. I know that we should. I have to, just write these, even though I know these words.
Yes. Write them
Just
down.
write
We
them
need
down. Right,
reminders.
right.
I want to take you back to the mid 80s. You're graduating from Syracuse University. They would have just lost or recently almost lost the national championship game to Indiana. I remember that. Keith Smart over Ronnie Cycli.
Okay. Remember, I was a
And if
theater
you're
major,
a
so I
college
have no idea about that.
if you're a college basketball fan, you will remember this. Yes. And we want to ask the Anthony of the mid 80s. You're talking to him in 2023. What advice would you share with your younger self based on all the lessons you've learned personally and professionally throughout the years?
Don't be so afraid. I was petrified. Um, you have more ability than you think, and people don't see as much or care as much about what you do and how you look than you might think. Uh, so those might be three things that I would say to myself, because at the end of the day, it was really, you know, I'm a small cog in the very big world, like a tiny little morsel, right? And it would be great to do bigger and better things still. And I still would love if that opportunity comes my way, I'm still there. I'm not too old. However, I would say that I forgot what I was going to say, which happens with age. So forget it.
I mean,
Just
you
let
still
it
gave some
go.
pretty good
Just let it
advice there.
go.
You gave some
Yeah.
good advice, so
I
don't be
totally
afraid.
nope, it doesn't even it's not even coming back now.
He
I
said,
would
"Don't
say
be
write
afraid."
down what you want to say before you say it so you don't forget it when
Ah,
it comes time,
I got
actually.
you there. Yes,
Love
yes.
that.
Don't be afraid. Don't
Amen.
worry about what people are thinking about you because they probably aren't. They're not thinking about you as much as you think they are. Very true. Um, Mandy, what's going to be our final question of the interview?
Oh, goodness
No
gracious.
pressure. No
Yeah,
pressure.
no pressure. I had been thinking about this. You've done it all. You said it all, you've done it all. Is there anything you want to do next? Is there any stone you haven't unturned?
Oh my gosh, I haven't done half of what I would love to do.
Really? I don't see
Yeah,
it like that. I feel like you're
really?
such a pioneer. Yeah. So, yeah, what is that? What's nagging on you that you want to do?
I I wanna write something. I keep coming back to this idea of I don't know whether it's a book or a play, I don't know. There's just something nagging at me saying you need to write something. It's either that or really focus. See, I know.
Amani. Amani wrote something
Telltales.
too. Hold up your DJ. Hold up
Oh,
your
sorry.
book.
Oh,
Amani's he
Yeah,
held
so
up
yeah.
my book. He didn't even hold up his book.
Because I'm thinking of Mandy first. So
Oh, thank
so do you
you.
feel accomplished having both written books? Do you feel was that a bucket list item?
Yeah, I've always wanted to write a book, and it got to a point where it was suffocating me that if I didn't do it, I just literally felt something bad was gonna happen. So, you'll get to that. I think you'll get to I think at if it's something you really wanna do, it
Right.
will take a stranglehold. I think that's what it did to me. I had to do it, otherwise I wouldn't be able to
it,
get up the next day kinda thing.
it kind of crept up on me out of the blue. It wasn't really a bucket list item, but now that I've done it once, I'm working on a second one. So it kind of hit me from the side, but it definitely feels good and it just continues to, it's like a big business card. And so it really helps.
Yes. Yeah, I imagine. I don't think you do it for the money, though, I
No.
assume, right?
No, not at
Just
all.
for the
No.
financial
I mean,
reward.
yeah, you do it because you have something to say and you truly want to share. You want to share
Yes.
your experiences or you want to just get it out into the ether. That's what it was for me. And I'm guessing, Anthony, that's probably how it is for you because I bet you got a lot of great stories in
I
there.
just don't that's the thing, I don't know what I wanna say. That's the problem. See, you focus so well in on sales tales, exactly what you wanted to say, the message so well. So I need to figure out what it is I wanna say. And there's also a part of me that honestly feels like, who want in my own podcast, I'm noted as saying, "Who cares?" Because I always think there are people out there who just do not care. So, I'm thwarted by that.
And I think more people do care than don't care, and
Yes.
you would be surprised about how many people do care once you actually get it out there, which that's a great final segue to your podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast and how
Please.
people can
Yes.
listen to you? And
Absolutely. Bollata Fide, Bollotta dash FIDE, Bollata Fide. We're available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you consume your podcasts. We have over 100 episodes already recorded and in the can. We've talked to Mandy. That was one of our most fun, best episodes. You should definitely check that out with
it's fun.
Mandy. Just came out recently. We've spoken to Neil Rubenstein, who's a Broadway producer. We've spoken to Patty Roscoe, the queen of PRA. We've spoken to Dr. Joe Jeff Goldblatt, who wrote the first book on special events and his started a curriculum at George Washington University. So we've had some great people on the show, and you can find it where you find your podcasts.
Well
Good.
said.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I feel that we'll have to have another conversation in the future
Oh,
once we see kind of how the year turns out and review what we've talked about today. But I definitely want to reach out to you and talk to you because we have lots of spaces where we cross over.
I think so.
Yeah, so it's been a pleasure for me. Mandy, how would you like to close it out?
I mean, just thank you. Thanks for being
Yes.
you. Thank you for being a pioneer and write your book or write something. We'll all read it. We'll all celebrate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Mhm.
so much for having me on. What a delightful experience. Thank you. Great to reconnect with you too, Mandy.
Yeah, you too.
You were
Thanks,
great.
Anthony.
All right. Round of
Bye
applause there
all.
for Anthony. Back to Mandy and myself. So, Mandy, as we close out, what do we have on tap for our next episode, which is next week?
Next week, I know we're going back to back.
Yes, back to back.
Back to back. We have so next week, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, February
Yes.
6th, we have Sean Walchef, who
Yes.
is the founder of Cali Barbecue Media. And if you do
All right.
not know him, you got to get to know him. He believes that we are all running our own media empire, and we are. He is the primary master of smartphone storytelling. His story is really inspirational, and I think everybody, whether you're an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur, everybody will get something out of that episode. So next week, February 6th, Sean Walshoff.
All right. Alex, I see you in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. We thank all our live viewers and all of you who are viewing the replay. We'll see you 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern next Monday. So excited. Thanks again to our guests today, Anthony and Mandy. We will see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. All right, it should be off for you there.
Yeah, it's I can't hit end stream, so they may be hearing us right now. Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, no cursing then. Just kidding. You should be able to hit end stream. It should let you.
It
Okay,
did let me. I just closed out of LinkedIn, so people may still hear us, but that's all right. We're just keeping it real authentic, keeping it real.
Hold on. I'm gonna make sure we're off air the whole time.
Oh yeah, double check.
Okay. So yeah, so I think we're good. Okay. So we're done. I think we're done. Hold on.
Did you hit record, Amani?
I did. Phew,
Oh,
right,
good.
right as we were talking, as I realized my first error uh, for the sound, which was really small. So I think we're good. Let's just fast forward this.
See, Anthony, this is we've just been learning this on the fly. We actually did a test show live, a live test show where we were just figuring it all out because we're like, nobody else is